Welcome to the Ask Faleskini podcast with a guest. I'm proud to present Jen Haddix, your spiritual bestie. Jen, welcome to the show. Please tell us more about yourself. What is your story?
Oh gosh, thank you so much for having me. I'm super excited to be here. And as far as my story, I'll try to condense it a little bit, but I'll just say that I had more or less a spiritual awakening back in 2016 when I was diagnosed bipolar and went kind of into the darkest chapter of my life. And I was about, I want to say, what was that, 9 years ago? So like 31. And it just kind of led me down a road of healing and meeting different people that had alternative healing methods. So it got me away from Western medicine and gave me some ideas about different things that I could do. It made me aware of the fact that everything is energy, that the mind and the body are connected. And it really kind of got me in touch with some new modalities. I became a certified yoga teacher, which got me in touch with a lot of people that had things that I'd never heard of, energy healing, reiki healing, plant medicine, all kinds of different things like that. And then a few years ago, I got into sound healing, and that's opened up a lot of different doors for me. And that's something that is really close to my heart, and I feel is a very divinely guided purpose. And so now I'm doing a lot of sound healing, mostly in person. I've got a sound healing certification where I certify other sound healers. And then I also am very passionate about online business and people finding their passions that have been kind of stuffed down by society and maybe creating a way either online and or in person to express themselves in the world. And I think that people find a lot of healing and happiness in that.
Amazing. I have so many questions I'm waiting to ask you. So, you said you explored alternative methods, and bipolar disorder is quite common these days.
Yeah.
And why did you go into alternative methods? What didn't you like with the, let's say, classical medicine approach?
Yeah. Well, I'm sure plenty of people that have been diagnosed with a mental illness, with depression, anxiety, um, manic depression, bipolar disorder, the medications they put you on are awful. They make you feel tired, they make you feel checked out, you don't feel very alive or connected, you don't feel sad or suicidal anymore, but you also don't feel like a human. I think it made me feel kind of like a robot. And so they'll tell you, Western medicine will say you're going to be on these medications for the rest of your life. And something inside of me was like, I don't think that's right. I think that's not how this is supposed to go. So I found a homeopath, and she actually took my lithium and my Klonopin, which are the two medications I was on, sent them to the homeopathic lab, and we got homeopathic versions of them so that I could wean off of them without having all those crazy side effects. And so it was pretty cool.
Wow, that is amazing. And why did you decide to become a yoga teacher?
That is, so I was actually bodybuilding back in those days. I went on stage and did competitive bodybuilding in the little bikini with the orange tan and the whole thing. And I started going to a yoga class at the gym I worked out at just because I wanted to stretch and be strong, and I have a dance background and I thought it would be fun. And something that happens when you do yoga and you don't realize it is you're meditating. You have no idea that you're meditating, but well, some people know they are, but if you're like me and you're really into the physical aspect of things, you breathe and then you follow your breath with your body, and it's a moving meditation. And over time, I was like, oh, this is changing me in a way that I wasn't expecting. And so I decided to do yoga teacher training, not to teach, but just to learn more. I ended up being a teacher because it's kind of a natural, leadership is a natural role for me. So it just kind of happened, but I had no intentions of it. And as I opened up that door, I saw this whole world of energy that I had never seen before.
Wow, that's amazing. And how did you end up in sound healing sphere?
Sound healing is wild. So I also have a background in singing, musical theater, music. So I'm a vocalist, and it's something that I hadn't done in about 10 years. I haven't been on in a stage production in quite some time. But a few years ago, so for those people that are listening that might be a little bit more what we call woo woo and into like the really woo stuff, I am surrounded by a lot of psychics, and I'm very into intuitive work. And so I actually have clairaudient tendencies, which means that sometimes I hear messages. And I got a very clear message to buy singing bowls. And I was like, well, I don't know how to do that. I don't have the money for it. I just kind of ignored it for a while, but it kept happening. And so eventually I was like, okay, I spent the last money I had on a set of singing bowls. The yoga studio I work at let me do a sound healing, and the bowls paid for themselves within like 5 sessions, and now it's like an empire that I'm creating. So I think that that's kind of a powerful story for when you get an intuitive nudge, even if you don't understand where it's going to go. If it feels good, you can follow it and it will open crazy doors. It opens everything.
Okay. Now, to the last thing that you mentioned, finding your passion, and
Hmm.
you help people find their passion.
Hmm.
How do you go about that? Is that a coaching session? How do you help them?
It kind of depends on how people come into my space, but online, and the way that maybe the people that are listening now might connect with me would be online, is a coaching session or multiple coaching sessions or a coaching container. I did just create a group program that I'm working on getting people into, but the main thing and the big thing that I'm really passionate about right now is I think most people, if they were to connect with their inner child, would find their passion so easily. That is what we were all born with, something that we came to do, and we came in as a child and we were so excited about art or dancing or train, whatever it is that you were excited about as a kid. And then over time, your parents, society, the people in your life told you, no, no, you need to be sensible. You need to do this. You need to have these things in order to be an upstanding citizen. And it kind of got beat down. And I really think that when you do the work to kind of connect with that inner child, it will show up for you. And even if you don't, again, if you don't know how to execute it, that's okay. That's other things that I do. But that's what I've been working on a lot lately, is getting people to listen to what their inner child has to say, because your passion is usually there.
As you know, our show is aimed at midlifers.
Hmm.
So when we start feeling a bit stuck, we don't know, and we start acknowledging that we will die eventually, and that we are not too satisfied with our job, with our marriage, and everything like that. So,
Yeah.
is that the right time to start searching for our inner child?
I mean, I think any time is the right time, and I think that would be the perfect time, because it's right when you recognize that you're not satisfied and that something is missing or something is off.
Okay, and when we work with inner child, it's easy. For me, it was really easy because I would just retire at 40 and said, okay, I'm now doing
Right.
my bucket list. But for the people that are employed, that they have to take care of their families, and so, how would you recommend that they go about searching for their inner child?
I think it's really important to acknowledge where you are. Like you said, you were able to retire at 40, you've got a little bit more freedom, and somebody might hear that and get really, really jealous, but that just isn't their karma. That's not their life path. They might be in a specific situation with a job and a family to take care of for some karmic thing that they're working through, or some lessons that they're trying to create. So I think the most important thing is, how can I start to do this in the life that I have now? How can I be more accepting of where I am? Because the more frustrated you are with where you are, the more that energy is going to come to you and you're going to stay stuck in that loop. And the more, if you can kind of accept where you are and recognize, I'm here for some divine reason, and if I move from here, I'm going to be okay, and find those small spaces. Because let's say, for example, you're somebody with a family and you work a full-time job and you've got kids that you got to get to school in the morning, and you have very little time. You do have some time though. So even if it's 5 minutes a day where you lay in bed before you go to sleep and envision your inner child and just try to listen to them for a couple minutes, that's enough to start the process. You really have to meet yourself where you are, or else you're going to get really frustrated.
I really like the concept you have to meet yourself where you are.
Mhm.
Um, I'll be pushy about midlifers. Where should midlifers start? Should they attend a yoga class? Should they go and go on a sound healing session? Should they start with coaching? Where do you think is the best place to start? If, let's say, I'm now 45, I'm lost in my life. What would be the first thing you would recommend a person do when they start? They're not fully satisfied with their life.
Mhm.
What is the best thing to start, or this one thing that you would recommend?
That's a challenging because this is where I think the intuitive part comes in, and I think the same tools are not going to work for everyone. And I think we get kind of hard on ourselves if it's like, oh, yoga's working for all these people, but it doesn't feel like the right fit for me. So I would say the first thing might be to check in with yourself when you're hearing me and you talk about all these tools. Does yoga sound intriguing? Have you always wanted to do yoga? There might be something there for you. It would be worth going and seeing what comes up. Have you always wanted to go to a sound healing? Have you been like, oh my God, everyone's talking about that and I've been meaning to go? That might be your sign to do that. But if you're like, wow, I am really overwhelmed, I have no idea where to start, all of this stuff scares me, like this sounds weird and different, and again, meeting yourself where you are, you kind of have to give yourself a little bit of love and grace as you open up these new doors because they're going to change your perspective completely. And that's a little bit confronting. And so if any of those resonate with you, I would say kind of take, if coaching, if you're like, wow, I'd love someone to hold my hand and talk me through this, coaching might be for you. But if none of those feel good right now, like I said, laying in bed, the 5 minutes before you fall asleep, envision yourself as a child and ask them what they like to do and start there. And I know that that's not going to create this gigantic shift immediately, but that daily showing up of checking in with them will start to open up doors, and it might make you more comfortable with the idea of coaching or yoga or sound healing or meditation or what you do, any of that.
Okay, that is a good one. Okay, so that is for start. We start with 5 minutes a day in our bed before we fall to sleep, and
Mm-hmm.
start just being present with ourselves,
Mm-hmm.
and start thinking of what we want, because that is important. And you also mentioned the society-induced goals, and that a lot of people in midlife, they cannot distinguish society-induced goals from their own goals.
Yeah.
And you said we need to go back and try searching for our childhood passion
Mm-hmm.
in order to get in touch with our inner child.
Mm-hmm.
So let's say that our childhood passion was playing volleyball.
Yeah,
So how should we go about it? Because it's hard to become a professional volleyball player in our 40s or 50s. So,
totally.
so what would you recommend?
That is a brilliant question because sometimes the passion that you had as a kid isn't exactly what you're meant to be doing, but reconnecting with that passion will open you up to the thing that maybe is trying to come out of you. You just have squashed it down so far. So, for example, using myself, when I was younger, I did a lot of performing and I did musical theater and I wanted to be on Broadway. That was like the big thing that I wanted to do. And that is clearly not where I'm at now, but I am in my purpose. And so, because I went back to dance class just for fun, because I went back to singing lessons for fun, those things, even though I am not a Broadway performer, have opened up the doors for what I do in my sound healings, what I do in my business, the things that I do in the way that I show up. And so let's say you are that volleyball player and you were a kid and you love to do it. Now you're like, well, wow, my body is, I'm certainly not going to be a professional volleyball player at 45, 50, 55 years old, but could you go find a community class where you could start to play and get yourself back in that playful energy? Because when your vibration is higher and you're in that playful energy, the ideas will start to flow. Because that's what happens too. Like thinking about what you're saying, what we talked about before when we got on here is that most people are depressed, most people are anxious, most people are sad. And when you're in that place, it is really, really hard to give a crap about what you're doing in the world and what makes you excited because you're not happy. And so your vibration is lower. So if you can find ways to play, even if that's not your ultimate purpose, it will open up the doors for other ideas to come through and you'll eventually find it.
I just love this concept. Go vibe and find uh, your passion and find what you're meant to do. And the ideas will come, the people will come if you are in that right direction.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, sorry, vibration. Now I would like to ask you another thing about sound healing.
Okay.
There is thousands of sound healings recording on YouTube.
Mm-hmm.
Is any of them good?
Yeah, a lot of them are really good. Yeah, because there's a big sound healing revolution happening right now. So there's just like years ago where everybody started to become a yoga teacher, sound healing is kind of on the same trajectory. And so there's a lot of people who are really trying to get their help out there, and YouTube is a wonderful place to start.
How do we know which one we need right now? Which track should we listen to?
As you saw my brand, Intuitive Jen, right? So honestly, for me, it's all a gut feeling. So try not to overthink it. If you go to YouTube, you could type in, let's say that you're feeling really anxious or you're having a hard day or you're feeling like you had a conflict. You could type into the YouTube browser bar, sound healing for anxiety. That will at least narrow it down to be a little bit more about what your intention is. And then don't overthink it and just pick the one that you think is going to feel good. And if you find that you sit through a sound healing and you're like, wow, that was kind of weird and I didn't really love all of that, then you've learned something about what you need. And so it's not wasted time. It's just you kind of picking and figuring out the direction you need to go in. It's uncovering that path.
Can we do it with speaker on our phone, or do we need a huge stereo system?
No, it's very much everything is energy, right? So while it will not feel as powerful because you're doing it on your phone, I would recommend headphones. That would help you feel a little bit more
Yeah.
having that experience, but it doesn't really matter. It's the intention behind it, the frequency, the hertz, they're going to get to you. It's happening at all times. And so you setting the intention to lay down in a space and listen because you need help with blah, blah, blah is enough for that to help you.
Thank you very much for all this insight. And Jen, please let our viewers and listeners know where they can get in touch with you.
Yeah, so you can just find me intuitivejen.com, so it's Jen, and I have everything on there. And there's a lot on my website, as you saw, because I do half of my business is in person. I do a lot of retreats and events in person, but then I also do coaching online. I'm going to be adding a sound healing certification online in the near future. And so everything I do is on there, and you can send me a message if anything resonated with you, but you're kind of not sure where to start or what to do. Just send me a message and ask me questions, and I'm happy to help.
Thank you very much, Jen. Thank you for all these insights, and thank you for being my guest tonight.
Thank you very much for having me.